Want to know what LureWorks Copperhead really looks like before you waste your time and your plastic? Well, I tested it at 4 different drop counts from light to dark, so you don't have to. Alright guys, we got our plastic all heated up and ready to go. So basically how I'm going to do this today is I have half a cup of plastic in each cup, and I'm going to be doing a different drop count in each one. So after we add our pigment, we'll be injecting it into the 3-inch tracer shad and the 4.2 riprap from Angling AI. I think this would be a good comparison of what this color looks like in a thin, kind of slender body bait versus a little bit of a thicker bait, which obviously will make a difference in how this color looks. But before we start adding our pigment, I want to tell you guys a little bit about this color. So if you actually head over to LureWorks website, you'll actually see that on every pigment they have on their site, they have a scale next to it that says, from 1 to 5, that says either how transparent or opaque that particular color is. And they actually rated this as level 2, which according to them is semi-opaque. So you would think that's a pretty bold color and you wouldn't need a lot of pigment to get to where you want it to get to. But when I was testing it out and kind of playing with it, that's not at all true. So you actually need a lot more pigment than you would think for a semi-opaque bait. So not what I would have called it, but yeah. So anyway, let's start adding our pigment. So given that it's so transparent, I'm actually going to be starting with 40 drops in our first cup here. I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me. And then we'll be adding 40 more drops each cup. So 40, 80, 120, and 160. I only have half a cup of plastic here though, so I'll be doing just half that amount of drops. But actually first, before I actually start adding the 40 drops, or the 20 drops I guess, I actually want to show you guys what this looks like with just 5 drops, so equivalent of 10 drops in 1 cup, which is typically a good point to start, like a good starting point when you're kind of experimenting with a new color. So let's just do that real quick. Yeah, so you see that? That is equivalent of 10 drops if you were doing 1 cup of plastic. You can hardly see it. So I was talking about, and I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering if I didn't mix up the bottle well enough. Believe me guys, I did mix it up plenty well. I had a couple of beads in here in the bottom of this bottle, and I even have a storing rod that I use to make sure that nothing was packed down to the bottom. So that is definitely not our issue. But now I'm just going to reheat my plastic back up a little bit, get up to temp, and then we'll start adding the rest of the pigment here. All right, we got our plastic all back up to temp here. So I'm just going to finish adding our pigment to this one. So I'm going to add another 15 drops. And again, that's going to be equivalent of 40 drops if you're doing 1 cup. I'll go ahead and add the pigment to the rest as well. So let's just do that real quick. 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. Alright guys, here's how they all turned out. There's that lightest one, darkest one. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to inject this first one on camera for you guys real quick. And then I'll probably speed through the rest of them off camera. And then we can get a side-by-side comparison going. So let's do it. Alright guys, our molds are all cooled off and ready to be opened. So again, this is the equivalent of 40 drops in 1 cup. So see how it looks. Let's get out of that way. And there we are. So as you can see, it's super translucent. I mean, for this many drops, for 40 drops in 1 cup, normally you'd have a much more saturated color. But that's how that looks. Don't get me wrong, still a very cool color, but yeah. So let's see how the riprap looks. See if the bigger bait makes it look a little bit better. Not really, let me a little bit, but So there we are. There's our comparison. It's actually pretty similar. Maybe a little bit darker. But yeah, I'm going to do the rest off camera here real quick. Then I'll be back in a second with comparison. Alright guys, so here's how our minnows turned out. So you guys can get a better look down here, but here is our 40 drop count, and then 80, 120, 160. And if you guys look at, I already showed you guys the 40 drop, but here is the 80. I mean, look at that. There's a little bit of light going through it. It's still so translucent. It's crazy. But then here's the 120. Personally, I think this is my favorite of all 4 drop counts. And the 160. Definitely not too much, but finally it's starting to get a little more opaque. And guys, isn't this a beautiful color though? I mean, the camera isn't really picking up super well, but guys, it is a pretty color. But alright, let's take a look at the swim baits real quick. Alright, so here is how the swim baits turned out. Here's that 80. 120. And you guys see it, now is when you finally start to see like how much of that, the bigger profile, how much that actually affects the color. Like this is much more, it's still obviously see my finger through it, but much more opaque than the same drop count in the minnow. So, and then here's the 160. So personally, I probably wouldn't put this much in a bait of this size. I think it's a little bit too much, especially because obviously most likely you're going to be injecting these with either some glitter or something like that, or as a laminate, especially if you have a darker top or bottom, and you're doing laminate with these guys, then I probably wouldn't go as dark as this, because the laminate itself will also make the color look a little bit darker. So yeah, there's how they turned out. Now I think I'm going to take this one step further, and I'm going to add, I'm going to take these two, so I'm going to take the 80 drop count and the 120 drop count, and for the 80 I'm going to add one drop of black, or a fraction of a drop of black, just to show you guys how adding a backer to it can really make it look pretty cool and darken up a little bit. And then for the 120 drop count, I'll be adding just some basic black flake, just so you guys can get a idea of what that would look like. So yeah, let's do it. Alright guys, here is the final result of all of our work. What do y'all think? I think it's a pretty cool color. I really like it, especially with that black flake, even though it's so simple. It's very cool. And hopefully this helped you guys, dial in this color faster and saves you guys some time and plastic. If you guys want to try out Copperhead for yourself, I'll link it in the video description along with everything else I use in today's video. And comment down below. What do y'all think about this pigment? What are your plans for it? Stuff like that. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you in the next video.